for joining us for yet another episode of A Chat with ESV Olalekan Aboderin. My name is Oluwafemi Sanusi. As we know, this is a production of REST, otherwise known as Real Estate Services and Transaction, a subsidiary of Real Academy Limited. In the house, of course, we have ESV Olalekan Aboderin. He's the lead advisor of Olalekan Aboderin Consulting, a firm of estate surveyors and valuers. He's also the Director of Studies of Real Academy Limited, a professional real estate development center here in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you, sir, for joining us for yet another episode.
Thank you, Femi. Viewers, thanks for being part of this show.
And there's a bit of difference to to your look today, sir.
Really? What's that difference? Don't forget we're in Lagos. Yeah, in Nigeria.
All right. So in the last episode, we talked about buying a property that has a registered title but with low tenure, and under that we talked about some of the risks involved. Okay. Now, I want us to start on this note that since there's a risk, there must be measures that can, mitigate against those risks that we have. So I want us to start on that note, sir.
Okay, thanks so much. That's good. There are risks. So many risks that the buyer of property with low tenure will be exposed to. But equally, there are measures to be taken to ensure that the exposure is managed or that the exposure is properly handled. In terms of measures, it depends, however, on whether the grants, right, is from governments or is from individual.
Okay.
If the grants of the lease that is running off is between government and individual, or government and company, or is between two individuals or the other individual and company, or company and company, then it should be the measures are somehow different. There are some measures that lend themselves readily to whether it's with government or from individual. But there is equally specific measure that you can only exercise when it is a grant from individual.
Okay.
So now, these measures classically could be identified as one, having to buy diligently the property with its existing state of title.
Okay.
Buy diligently with the existing state of title.
Okay.
That is number one. Number two is having to pursue what we call surrender and renewal.
Okay.
To adopt surrender and renewal process.
Okay.
That is another measure. And that, of course, can give lasting solution. Then the third measure is to process acquiring the unexpired residue.
Okay.
To process acquiring the residue of the grantor.
Okay.
That again, we grant, we give lasting measures.
Okay.
But that has a limitation.
Okay.
The limitation is that can only be done in the case of a grant from an individual or an individual company.
Okay.
Not a grant from government.
Okay.
So these are the measures classically that can be adopted to reduce or manage or handle the likely risk that low tenure property poses.
Okay. So I want you to, now that you mentioned those measures, can you just explain each one in its entirety?
Each of the measures.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Talking about buying diligently with consideration of the existing tenure.
Yes.
Then what that means is that you don't pay for what you will not enjoy.
Okay.
Right? You don't pay for what you will not benefit.
Okay.
You see the property in its states, existing states, and you get professional to assess the value of that property based on the existing tenure. And that means whatever the buyer will be paying will be a commensurate value to the tenure that is going to acquire. It will not be, that will reduce the risk of what we call price risk.
Okay.
Because it's being guided. That's why the due diligence is there. Is paying for exactly what he is to buy.
Okay.
is paying for exactly the low tenure that the seller has to sell.
Okay.
Because you see, the risk there is this. A lot of sellers out there, whether out of ignorance, which of course we can pardon them for because of the intricacies of real estate, or deliberately, they know the tenure, either they know or they don't know, that the tenure is low, but they still want to sell at a value of a property that has a very long tenure, like 60, 70, 80 years. Or even a property that is of a perpetual interest.
Okay.
Right? Until and unless such seller is guided, right, that these deficiencies, the limiting factors, are shown to such sellers and the impact of such factors explained to such sellers.
Okay.
Otherwise, as a matter of fact, such a seller might not be able to sell at all.
Okay.
I have an example, personal experience, that has to do with a property like that. Then they had about, don't let me be exact for confidentiality, let's say they had about 19 years ago.
Okay.
Okay? And I was to buy for a client. But because of that tenure, we choose to even negotiate based on this measure that we advised. But along the line, the negotiation failed. I tell you, 5 years down the line, they were unable to sell. It's the same buyer that we represented that they came back to after 5 years. Now had to, retrace their steps. Now negotiation had to be done and so on and so forth. So the risk there, again, to seller out there is that if you do not sell at reasonable figure that is commensurate to the tenure, the low tenure, with evolution of time, year in, year out, that tenure will continue to reduce more and more. So the risk exposure becomes wider and wider. It constitutes a very clear threat buyer will be running away from buying. So you don't wait until that happens. So for buyer to buy and reduce the risk, he has to buy with the knowledge of that low tenure, and he might not know. So the engagement of professionals becomes essential there, particularly as surveyors and fellows. Not because I'm one, but because of experience in the field. Right? Then two, the same essence of value will be able to interpret the value from the market, what that low tenure should attract. So if a buyer is buying at such commensurate value, then he has reduced his risk exposure.
Okay.
So that is the aspect of buying diligently with the knowledge and based on the low tenure.
Okay.
Let me again mention here, before we go to that one.
Okay.
You realize that I mentioned 3 measures.
Okay.
I just explained one.
Okay.
We have 2 other measures.
Okay, sir. Okay.
The first one I explained is buying diligently with the knowledge of the low tenure.
Then
We equally have, out of the measures, having to pursue surrender and renewal.
Okay.
The aspect of surrender and renewal is a case where the seller will have to surrender. We approach the grantor
Okay.
that he wants a longer tenure.
Okay.
So he will be surrendering the existing tenure
Okay.
for a grant of a longer term.
Okay.
In some clans, they call it surrender and extension.
Okay.
Now, what that means is that, you see, the advantage of it is that so long as he has a tenure to surrender, that will help in negotiation because he's an interested party, he's an owner. So it will help them in negotiation. The aspect of surrender and renewal requires the work of professional to be able to know what to offer for the renewal of a new term. Because the value of his existing term must count while negotiating for the renewal of a new term. And I can tell you, I know for the case of Lagos, that the grants, they do surrender and renewal. Though I think that's Alaska, they'll say until it's about 10 years and below, then you can come up for surrender and renewal. Right? So it can be done with a measure. Just as it can be done with government, it can even be equally be done with individuals. Like for example, let's say the grantor has a freehold interest, and the seller now is to surrender his own interest for another term. That's another measure. The third of the measure is to acquire the unexpired residue of the grantor. Right? In this case, that cannot be done with government. But it can be done between two individuals or two organizations. Let's say the tenure of the seller is just about 21 years to go.
Okay.
But now he requires a longer tenure because he wants to sell and wants to sell for value, or that because he's seeking hands in equity hands or participation of another partner, either in his business or in JV or what have you.
Okay.
In that situation, he can choose to acquire the unexpired residue of the grantor.
Okay.
That will create what we call marriage value, because there will be merger of interest. His own unexpired term and the unexpired residue of his tenure together will be matched, and the seller now will now assume the position of that person that has the unexpired term.
Okay.
So that again will give a lasting solution. And in doing that too, it involves professional. It requires the hands of professional, the informed one, right? To ensure that the assessment is done based on the scenario of merger of interest. Merger of interest, and that negotiation be done effectively based on that. So these are the measures to be taken. But as I said, that third one, which is to acquire unexpired residue, is only open to when it is between two parties, individuals or organizations.
Okay.
And I tell you, all these things happen in our society. This last one, there was an asset like that here in Lagos, that the tenancy, the terms are drawn off. And fortunately, we got to know of it because we had to do valuation of the asset. Then we have to advise. You see, funny enough, if you value such an asset for insurance, it will have high value, particularly if it's under restatement. It will have the value as if it's a brand new asset, right? Now, if it's for indemnity, under insurance, we still have high value, but based on the existing states, physical state of the asset, right? But when you value such property for sale, mortgage, under open market valuation, you realize that the value will be zero. Yeah, because the tenure had lapsed.
That's right.
So, given that opened the eyes of the organization to so what could they do? Is to acquire the unexpired residue of their grantor, which they were able to do successfully. And today they have very good, very secure tenure in respect of that property as an investment. So it happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, so with that, we've come to the end of this episode. Please remember to follow us on social media. Our different social media accounts are displayed at the bottom of the screen. If you also have feedbacks, suggestions, and questions for us, please, we would like to hear from you. So until next time, bye-bye from me.